today is the practical of what Aaron has been sharing. So Aaron, I'll tell you what, he's been knocking it out of the park with this amazing series on tithing and giving. And so he wanted today to be the practical piece. So we're going to give you some actual, I'm a very practical person, so today we're going to give you some actual practical stuff that you can take with you today. So before we get started, we have three special stories about God's faithfulness in giving and tithing. So I'm going to call the Rose up, Maldy up, and Morgan King. If you guys all want to come up really quickly. And so we know that when we put our money in God's stream, that he does amazing things. And so there has been some amazing things happening with these three individuals. Maddie, you can come on up. There's been some amazing stories that they've encountered God with tithing and giving. And so just to encourage you and build your faith, I'm going to ask them each to share for 3 to 4 minutes just about an amazing testimony of what God's done in their giving.
Okay.
Not me, me first.
Okay. Good morning. So when did class start? This past one, was it beginning
January.
of January? Okay. January class started, and I went out to the info bar one day, and these two were behind the info bar. I'm like, what are they doing there? So I went and talked to them, and anyways, long story short, got talked into taking financial freedom class. So here I am, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, happy to be the lender, not the borrower. And 3 weeks in, my transmission said, nope, you're not. So fairly new car, bought it from the dealership, have taken it to the dealership. It was just kind of really a weird thing. And it was basically going to double the debt I was trying to pay off on student loans. Which was a little frustrating. Here I am trying to get that down, and then it doubles. So took it in, $5,000 new transmission. And I'm like, what in the world? My car's not that old, like 5 years. So I go to the service manager. I'm like, hey, like, I'm single. I have a mortgage. Can you please, like, help me do something? Can Honda stand behind this? Anything will help. So 2 or 3 weeks go by and nothing. He's like, Honda's really not standing behind anything. Like, you'll be lucky to get any assistance. So not what you want to hear. But he comes back and he's like, hey, I happen to be talking to the right person at the right time, and they're going to cover 75% of it. So we go back down to $1,200 or so. Still a chunk, but it's better than $5,000. And a couple weeks later, they do everything, fix the transmission. They call me, and they're like, hey, your car's ready. And the way they billed it was through, like, customer pay versus warranty, whatever. He's like, you owe $500 on your car. So $5,000 to $500 is huge. It's amazing. So I'm like, yes, I'll be there right away. I'll come pick it up. Here's my card, ready to pay for it. And they're like, your car's been paid in full. So $5,000 to $0.
That's awesome. Hey, good morning. My name's Josh. This is my wife, Lydia. And I just wanted to share briefly on God's faithfulness. How many of you know Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever? When I became a Christian in January of 1997, at that time, Lydia and I were friends, and she grew up in a strong Christian family. I didn't know about tithing. If you were here a couple weeks ago, Aaron listed out different categories of where you're at on the tithing scale, and I was one that just didn't know. And so when I found out about tithing and how that principle worked, because of my new knowledge and the revelation that God gave me of what Jesus actually did, and I became a Christian, my heart was full in on tithing. I was so excited to be able to start that process. If that's what I was to do as a Christian, for me, it was a non-negotiable. It was just, wow, I get to keep 90%? This is awesome. Like, I will gladly give this. So my tithing began when I was 19 years old, and I'm 46 now. And we've been married 24 years, and we have 6 kids. And let me tell you, I'm sorry, 4 kids, 6 of us total. Sorry. And sorry. There's no more, no. We're going to Steph Curry and settle this down. 4 kids, 6 of us total. And God's faithfulness through the years, we have never been without. There has never been a time in my Christian walk with the Lord that I have been wondering, am I going to be able to eat tomorrow? Am my kids going to be able to get to school? Are we going to have to make a miraculous? That's not my story. It's just been God's continued faithfulness through the time. And I'm just so excited to be able to stand here and share this, just because of where we're at now today. We've never had a car payment, y'all. We have a mortgage, but our kids, there's money for them to go to college that we don't have to go into debt for. And on and on and on and on, I could share with you how God has continually fulfilled that need in our life, and we have always just given our tithes and offerings. Amen.
Morning. My name is Maury, and although I grew up in a Christian church and giving, offering, and tithing was a big thing, like I said, although I grew up in a Christian church, I wasn't the greatest at some point, sometimes either. But throughout my whole life, I always tested the Lord. There was one occasion when we were living in an apartment. My wife had a job. I had a job. We need a new car, and we literally have less than $1,000 on our bank account. And we went to a dealership, and we said, hey, if I give you, because at that point, cars were expensive, and especially new ones. And I said, I'll give you $4,000 if you lower the price, and they were happy with that, So we didn't have 4,000. So my wife was nervous. I was like, it's gonna be all right. So the week before, I did a job, which it was about that price, But the check bounced once, and they told me to try again. And they didn't tell me which day, but I kind of figured towards the end of the week, because it was the end of the month. And I told them, yeah, it's going to be good. The check is going to be good. So we went, go ahead, got the car. And in the back of my mind, I still had that feeling that it might bounce again. Hopefully not. We already written the check, given to them, and they were going to try to deposit it without the money in our bank. Luckily, it was the same bank. My customer was the same bank as I used, so it takes less than 48 hours for the check to be good. And when they deposit the check, a couple hours before, my customer paid. So, it was a close call. Anyway, second thing, we started looking for a house. We were praying, living here in an apartment, and we were praying hard. Like, we want something here in town. Well, not in town, but like on this area. And the Lord provided a house over there in Michael's Road. I won't tell you where because I don't want visitors. But that's how good the Lord is, and He has been. And I attribute that to giving and tithing. Also, business-wise, I started my business in my garage. It's a 2-car garage. Not much room for a lot of things, and start working. A year went by, bunch of equipment, not enough space. So without the county permits, I pulled up a car garage over there. They weren't happy about it, but they didn't give me a bunch of stuff for it, except for the neighbors. Sometimes when I pull equipment over there, for sure. But the time came for us where we grew up so big that we didn't have room for equipment. And then I asked the Lord again, Lord, you did it before. I know you're going to do it again. I wanted a place close to home and big enough for us to do whatever we wanted to do. And he provided right there in 25A, literally 3 minutes from my house. And it's big enough for us to even grow bigger. And I seen the Lord, and also, well, let me go back a little bit. While I was working, doing my business, I was working night shift for a company over there in Vandalia. And before I moved to that company, I prayed. I told him, Lord, I need a job close to home, that they're flexible in hours, and I don't want to work weekends. Like that was my specific prayer, and that's what I got. I was like, man, I mean, this is amazing. They were really, really good to me. I never got to meet the owner of the company, but he said, if you have to leave early one time or two, just talk to your supervisor, and that's fine. Just have to work extra the next day or whatever. But thankfully, I never had to. Went to work by 10:30. I had to be there. Work all the way till 6:30, and sleep 2 hours. Start doing my business, and then till 5, take a nap 2 hours. Wake up, spend some time with my wife, and then go to work. That happened over a year until my daughter was born, and then I finally was able to quit that job. But I was trusting the Lord that He was gonna supply for my business, and trying to cut me. and He did. He did actually. When I finally quit this job, I was afraid. We were afraid, both of the three of us actually at that point, that it wasn't gonna be enough. I had to go back to work and do it again. But thankfully, we seen a growth super quickly that I don't have no explanation, but I know it was God, because after that, I mean, everything happened, and He started falling together like a puzzle. And I don't have that in my mind that it was the Lord, and yeah, thankfully this is gonna be my 4th year in business here in August. So yeah.
Thank you. Wow.
So we're building your muscle today. We're building your faith muscle. And so testimonies are here for you to take. So if there's something that you hear from them or from Tiana and I today, God is no respecter of persons. And so if there's anything that you hear any of us say today, you claim it for yourself today. So I'm going to share a little bit about our testimony. And interestingly, our testimony is very similar to the Rose. And some of you know Josh and I's testimony. So when we first got married, we're there and we're going through our premarital counseling, and we committed to do 3 things financially when we got married. The very first thing was tithe. And of course, we've talked a lot about tithing. And we believed that you should tithe on the gross and not the net, because we wanted God to have the first fruits. So that's a whole other topic for another day. But tithing. The second thing is that we were going to live on a budget. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about budgeting today. I know everyone's super excited. Please calm down. Please calm down. You'll get to the budget just in a little bit. But the funny thing is, I'm like a big budget nerd now, and I'm like the spreadsheet queen. But at the time, I did not want to live on a budget. Oh my gosh, how restrictive. Who wants to live on a budget? But then the third thing was that we were never going to go into debt for anything, including cars, which is interesting the Rose said that, for anything but a house. And so 26 years later, we've been married 26 years. 26 years later, we have lived all of those 3 things, and there has never, not one time, been a bill, a repair, something we needed to purchase that we did not have cash in hand to do that. And I honestly believe it's because we tithed. We put our finances in God's river. So anyways, I mean, there's so many stories that I could tell you about God showing up in amazing ways. I mean, there's so many things, job promotions. One day, if we have tons of time, I would love to unpack the story of how we lost our medical insurance 1 month before our third child was born, and we were without medical insurance. But God showed up in a crazy way. We actually were able to pay our house off about 10 years ago, so that is a testimony as well. But just a couple things I've learned along the way. So one thing is you put in your natural, and God puts his super on top of it. You do what you can do. He partners with us. He asks us to co-labor with him. And we put in our piece, and you watch how God puts his hand and his provision over that. Contentment. 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 When you buy something, that fancy new thing, that glimmer fades really quickly. Like, man, you think, oh, I want that new pair of shoes, or I want this new this. And then you buy that for your 3-year-old daughter, and the minute you buy that Easter dress, she goes and jumps in the mud puddle. Not that that ever happened to me, but yeah, so those things glimmer and fade very quickly. If you're not careful, you will encounter what they call lifestyle creep. What's lifestyle creep, you ask, Angie? Lifestyle creep is when, hey, I got a raise, I got a promotion. Let my lifestyle just expand to this promotion. Don't let that steal your money. The bank will loan you way more than what your budget tells you. That's one thing I've learned. Another thing I've learned is keep your eyes on the prize. When horses are on a race, they put those blinders on the side of their heads so they only see with the path in front of them. And I think that's what God calls us to do. We see the path that he's called us on. And comparison is the thief of joy. Theodore Roosevelt said that. When you start comparing yourself to others, oh boy, that can really derail your financial goals. So that's kind of my testimony, some things I've learned, and I'm going to give it over to Tiana, and she's going to talk about a very different testimony. And while we're getting ready, can we have the slides, if those are available?
Yeah, my testimony is very, very different than Angie. If you want to go to the next one, the next slide. Here's Angie and I the last time they let us get on stage together. Back in 2016, we had Selfie Sunday back then. I scoured to find a picture to put up there for us. But Angie is clearly the spender, right? You just heard what she said. She's the spender? Wrong. Angie is definitely the saver. I am definitely the spender. And even in my household, I am still the spender. Nick is definitely the saver. So they started out knowing what they wanted their financial priorities to be. They had premarital counseling. We had a 30-minute conversation with great-grandpa Simmons and Grandma Simmons, which included some of the best marriage advice I've ever received. However, it was just a quick conversation. That was our premarital counseling, and it had nothing to do with money. It actually had to do with sometimes you'll have to let Nick do things that he likes to do, and we don't know you, but he'll have to let you do things that you like to do too. And so apparently part of that was I like to spend money, and so we had to figure out how we could balance those things. We just had no clue what financial priorities were. We weren't necessarily, doing anything wrong in our minds, but we just didn't know what we didn't know. So Nick and I were both raised by single moms, and we had very different single moms, obviously. Nick's mom is a saver. My mom is a spender. So you can only bring to a relationship the tools that you've been given, that you carry into it. And the tools in our bag were not fitting well together. So, and when we first got married, Nick and I were both in the Air Force, and if you know anything about military culture, they don't really teach you a whole lot about how to manage the paychecks that they give you. They're not super huge paychecks, and they don't teach you a whole lot about how to manage them, especially when you're starting out. So we just spent everything that we earned. Everything that came in went out. and then some. So in 2006, we left the military and we moved here to Ohio. We moved across the country, but not before buying Nick's dream truck with a $30,000 loan, because that's what broke people do. Like you go, when you live near a military base, you go and they will give you a loan because you have a uniform, and it's amazing and it's terrible all at the same time. Absolutely terrible. We had no business having the size of the loan that we did. But we loaded up everything and we moved across the country to Ohio from Utah, and we just continued to accumulate debt. And I was involved in a very pink direct sales company. I'll not name any names, but you can burst that bubble if you'd like. But we were doing so good with this business, and I was, meeting all these people and that kind of thing. And the financial advice I was given at the time included things like telling customers to put it on the husband unawareness plan, where you pay a little cash, a little card, and a little check, and they just don't know. I had no clue the deception that I was feeding people into their own marriages. I had no clue. And just putting things on a credit card to build an inventory. And I was doing all of these things in secret. Nick did not know the amount of debt that we had racked up. And one day I was like, we can't pay our bills. Clearly your truck is the problem. So we can't make this truck payment, so you're going to need to sell your truck. Like, you're going to have to sell your truck. And when you're upside down in a vehicle, you can't just sell your truck for what you need to cover the loan. And so I was like, I don't know, I guess you're just going to have to take it to a car lot and see what they'll do. And so he took it to a car lot here in Tipp City, and they ended up giving him this old beater red Chevy Blazer. I don't know if James Cullen is here, but he and Heather have worked on that red Chevy Blazer for us in the past. But they gave him this truck, and the car salesman was like, wait a minute, you want me to do what? You want me to give you this piece of crap? Sorry, I don't know I'm supposed to say that up here, but I think Aaron does, so it's probably okay. So you want me to give you this really beat-up car in exchange for your truck, and I'm going to take the loan on for your truck? And Nick's like, yeah, that's what my wife said you need to do. So that is what happened with our vehicle. So we got rid of the truck. So that was supposed to solve all of our problems. But the reality was, I was putting all of this inventory for a business on a credit card that wasn't even my credit card. I had borrowed a credit card from a friend who was also in this business with me, and we racked up a good $15,000 of debt on her credit card to support this business. So it was a whole lot. Like, I'm just laying it all out here. So there's got to be something in one of our stories that you can each relate to. There was a lot of what we found out later was really financial infidelity on my part. So a lot of forgiveness that had to happen in our marriage and in that healing. And through all of that, we would have considered ourselves givers, but not tithers. We gave what we could here or there. We'd write a check for $100 and literally pray that it would not bounce, because you don't want the church to know. Goodness gracious, you surely don't want the church to know that your money doesn't go forward. So anyways, so we were not tithers by any means. And then in our very, very broken place, we took Financial Peace University and learned to manage money in a biblical way, which included tithing. And from that moment, when we started taking this class at another church, we laid all of our stuff out there, just like I laid it all out there for you guys, and then some over there. But they were super supportive of us, and some of our biggest cheerleaders in this class, and really learning to do manage our money in a godly way was key. And from that moment, we decided, okay, we're going to be tithers. That means we don't know how we're paying our bills, but God's going to get what is already his first, because it's an act of obedience and it's changing the condition of our heart. And so that is the route that we chose to took. And there's no way we would have been able to pay off. After Nick's truck debt, we still had about $30,000 in debt. I say Nick's truck, it was our truck. It was ours together. But after the truck, we still had $30,000 in debt. And there's no way we would have been able to pay that off in 2 years with a single income, with only Nick's income, without God. Like, his math is way better than my math. obviously. He multiplies things that you cannot. And it's just so amazing. Our final thing that got us over the finish line of paying off that debt was actually our dream car at the time was a Lexus ES 350, a black one with black leather interior, but we had a green machine. It was a green station wagon, Ford Taurus station wagon with green interior and green carpet, green seats, green steering wheel. It was the green machine, and everything about it was green. It was great. It wasn't great, but in the middle of the night one night, I heard this crash outside of my bedroom window. And I went out, and this extremely intoxicated girl was like, my car's really been pulling to the right. And she had totaled our green machine with her mom's black Lexus ES 350. So it's kind of crazy how God, he also has a sense of humor, right? But what we got for that total of our car was 3 times the amount that we had paid for that vehicle. I don't know how that works other than the Lord. And it paid off our other vehicles. So we went down to a 1-car family, but God wiped out the rest of our debt just like that. And it is really, really amazing. So I have some financial clients that I coach. I'm a financial coach through Dave Ramsey. And the clients that I have that are intentional and focused about tithing before they do anything else are paying off their debt and reaching their financial goals significantly. I mean, leaps and bounds faster than those of my clients that are not. So, I mean, the way he does math is just so amazing, and it's an opportunity to change our family trees, like change how everybody operates with money. So that's part 1 of our testimony and getting into debt. But there's probably a part 2. Yeah, thank you.
I just love it because God knows your situation. And God works with you where you are. And my story is so much different than Tiana's story. But God meets us where we are in our story. So if we could cruise through the slides to that one. Yeah. Okay. So some things, and this is kind of a recap of what Aaron talked about and really kind of dug into the last couple weeks. But the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to him. So we are just God's asset managers. He owns everything, and he graciously lets us manage for him pieces of that. So God is the owner. And also another reason why God calls us to be givers and tithers is because he is a giver. He is the ultimate giver, and we are made in his image. And so when we give, when we tithe, we are showing off Jesus to the world. We're being Jesus' hands and feet. We're as asset managers. Giving also develops our character. The fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, those are exercised when we give. And if you want your fruit to grow, if you want to have fruit that people want to pick off your tree, some nice, good, juicy fruit, be a giver. Because that breaks that self-control, and it gives you this piece of loving people, being kind to people. It also, go back one more. Let's foster, and it also fosters contentment. So when you give, you are telling God, thank you for what you've given me. I have enough. I can give to other people. So it really fosters that contentment in you. Also, this isn't up there, when you give, it stores up treasures in heaven. This isn't the final landing zone. Heaven is the final landing zone. And when we give, we store up treasures in heaven. Let's see. And then we're going to go on to the scripture slide. So the Bible says a lot, a lot about money. And a couple scriptures, if you guys want to snap that, there's some good scriptures, but a couple I want to, I'm not going to go through all those, but a couple I want to dig in on is Deuteronomy 14:22, which says, "You shall truly tithe all the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year." So if you want consistent year-to-year giving, provision, that comes from tithing. And also, this is one of my favorite ones about giving it's a very overlooked one. It's 2 Corinthians 9:10. And that one says, "Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will supply and multiply," just like Tiana's testimony, "the seed you have sown and increase the fruits of your righteousness." So he supplies seed. What do you do with seed? You put it in the ground. It has to grow. He also provides food. Bread for food, which is your daily provision. And then he multiplies that seed, and he also increases the fruits of your righteousness, which are outside what we talked about, the fruit that you get to pick and that people pick off your tree. Okay, so now we are actually going to get into some practical stuff. Well, this is all practical, so I'm going to turn it back over to Tiana.
Okay, we're going to fly through some of these things because the reality of this is Angie and I could be up here and talk to you for like the rest of the day, and I know that this isn't everybody's favorite topic, but just bear with us a little bit longer. So this slide up here is the exact roadmap of how we got out of debt and we turned our financial situation, we'll call it, around, not once but twice, actually. So there's a part 2 to the story. Sometimes you got to learn a lesson the hard way, more than once. You have to do dumb things with zeros on the end. Harder, apparently. I don't know. But so the baby steps, what we like about these is anybody can do them. It's really simple. And it doesn't matter like where you are. Maybe you don't have debt. Maybe that's never been an issue for you like Angie. Angie still follows the baby steps, even though her story is different than mine. So it's really anybody can do these things. It's not just a get out of debt plan. It's a wealth building and like generosity building kind of plan also. So baby step 1 is $1,000 emergency fund. Before you tell me that's not enough money, I'm aware of that. Actually, I know that most emergencies cost more than $1,000 nowadays. I mean, shoot, going to the grocery store can cost $1,000 depending on your family size. So I'm aware that that's not very big. It's meant to be the little bit of a snowball, like the first little bit, the little handheld snowball that you pack to get things rolling on these baby steps. So it's just a beginner. So the second thing is getting out of debt. Pay off all your debts. Except for the house. We don't count that in this debt snowball kind of thing. So then the third step is save 3 to 6 months of expenses in a fully funded emergency fund. Baby step 4 is to invest 15% of your household income in retirement. Then baby step 5 is save for your children's college fund. Or sometimes you didn't start soon enough to save for it, so now you're in baby step 5 and you're cash flowing it. So instead of saving it, I recommend saving if you can start now. It's expensive. Baby
yes,
steps.
It is.
Yes, it is. Baby step 6 is to pay off your home early. And baby step 7 is to build wealth and give. However, giving is part of this throughout. That last portion is giving above and beyond what we would consider a tithe and that kind of thing. So that's just the basics of the baby steps. And I put this scripture on here, Hebrews 12:11. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. And if you look at those steps, till you get to about step 3, 4, none of that looks fun, does it? It's not. It's actually not fun. And it can be a little painful sometimes, but it does produce a harvest. So, and there's peace in it when you get over that hump. So that's the baby step. So Angie's going to talk a little bit about baby step 1.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about saving because I'm a saver, I guess. So, the very first baby step is saving $1,000, but also just the baby step number 3 is 3 to 6 months of living expenses. It is so important to have some margin in your life, and that doesn't just mean also with finances, but in everything. And when you save, that gives you margin. You have to have margin in your life. And when you save, it gives you margin. I remember one Christmas, at Christmas time, you always spend a little bit more than any other time of the year. And of course, we budgeted, we save every single month. Well, one Christmas, right after Christmas, directly December 26th, it might even been December 25th, we realized, oh no, we need 4 new tires. Oh no, that morning I took a shower and it ended up being cold. Oh no, our washing machine broke. We had 3 major things that were, I don't know, it ended up being $2,000, $3,000. I can't remember how much, but I was like, ouch. But I'll tell you what, because we had saved, it was just a minor inconvenience. Oh, crud. But that's why you save, because you need some margin in your life. And I'll tell you what, one thing about Dave Ramsey, and I know that Dave Ramsey is a little harsh at times. Sorry, Dave, if you're watching this. You are a little harsh sometimes. But honestly, when you live in your life going against the stream is get debt. Just go, get what you want. We're a convenient society. Who cares? Just get a credit card. I'll tell you what, there is no peace in that. There is no peace. And I'll tell you what, there is peace when you swim upstream. And when you swim upstream, it is a lot of work sometimes. But I'll tell you what, the peace that you give, that you get, there is nothing like that peace. And so one thing I always say is be abnormal. You want to be your own bank. So when you have things that come up in your life, you want to go to the bank of Josh and Angie and be able to pay for new washer, new car, whatever is needed. And that is why it's so crucial to build margin in your budget, which we'll address in just a minute.
What she meant was not go to the bank of Josh and Angie. She wants you to fill in your name there.
Yes, don't come to our bank.
I'll go to the bank of Nick and Tiana.
Yes. Because our bank says Angie retires at 55. That's Angie's bank. Okay, so Tiana is going to talk about baby step 2, fly through it quickly, and then we're going to end on budgeting. So stick with us, guys. We're getting close.
We are so close. So baby step 2, have you ever worked so hard for something, to achieve a really huge goal, and then once you cross the finish line, you just completely quit doing all the things that you were doing to get to that place? Maybe you were training for a race. I don't run, so that's not me. So obviously that's not a good example. Angie is a runner, so maybe she can relate to this. But you're training for something. You were reaching a goal. Maybe it was to get a promotion at work, to study for an exam, to get a grade, whatever the case may be. You did all these things to get to that place, and then you're like, mission accomplished, done. I'm just done. I forget all those things. I stopped eating the carrot sticks. I, put down the water bottle, whatever the case may be. That was Nick and I. When we finished paying off our debt, we decided, we just kind of got lax about things, and we didn't follow the plan anymore because we had achieved the big goal, because it took a long time to achieve that big goal. So what we did instead was we just had all of these little compromises here and there. It wasn't like you just completely stopped training, right? You just maybe stopped eating healthy today. And then tomorrow, that cheeseburger looks all right. And then all these little compromises end up into digging you into a really big pit. And our really big pit this go around ended up being over $100,000 in debt. So we had car loans. And Angie, I don't even know if she knows these numbers. When I see her face, she's like, yeah, I know it's bad. So over the course of 7 years, it wasn't like one day we went out and we were like, let's do all these things. It was over the course of time. We got another car. We got a truck. We got a camper. We got another camper because that one wasn't good enough. And we really just started kind of having the mindset of we work hard, so we deserve it. We deserve it. That mentality of we deserve it put us right back into bondage. And Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor and the borrower is slave to the lender. And I'm just going to tell you that debt is the worst master you can have. It does not allow you, slaves don't get to make choices. Slaves don't get to say, I'm going to go on a mission trip to Costa Rica or Mexico. Slaves say, I can't do that because I put myself in a hole again. I don't get to do that because my master says I have to stay at home. My master, I allowed to become debt again. So all of that, you know, it was a mess we walked in together. Nick was a willing participant this time around. I just would like to throw that out there, that this wasn't just me digging the hole. Nick was a willing participant, and it was just a kind of fall off the wagon type thing. And that's nothing new. People have been struggling with that for years. The Apostle Paul in Romans 7:19 says, I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. You guys, he wrote that like almost 2,000 years ago, so it's really not a new thing. Like, it's not a new concept. It's something we all can struggle with. So we got out of that pit. It was 2020 when we realized we had dug this big hole again. And so between 2020 and 2022 sometime, I'm not really sure when, but we paid off by selling or paying off over $100,000 in debt in that time frame. So that was a really big deal. Thank you. But again, we wouldn't have done it without the Lord. So his hand through all of that, and our hard work. Like Angie said, he will put the super on your natural. You can't pray to God to get you out of a mess, and when he says, here's some overtime, Nick, be like, I don't want that. You know, that's not what I was praying for, that money. That's not, I just wanted you to give it to me. That is what we wanted. We just wanted it given to us, but that's not how you learn lessons either. So in order to get out of debt for baby step 2, sometimes you have to sell some stuff. Sometimes you have to learn to say no to people. You have to take a second job. You have to, like Angie was saying, it's okay to not be normal. Normal is broke. Be weird. Say no to people. Invite people over to your house for dinner instead of going out with friends for dinner. It's so much cheaper. Everybody bring a dish because I'm not feeding all of you, kind of thing. So I can't afford it. And also like stop keeping up with people. And for the love, stop looking at social media and everybody else's lives and what they're putting on there. Yeah, because they're all broke. They are all broke. 99% of them, I'm not going to say all, 99% of the things you see on social media, they paid for with debt. They're not paying for it. They're in bondage to that vacation. So don't look at those things. So those are like just some quick things about getting out of debt. Sell stuff. Get a second job, work overtime, whatever that looks like. It can be done. Twice, not doing it again, so I need you all to get this now because I don't want a third testimony of us going into debt, so you can grasp it. But now we're going to talk about budgeting. It's a B word, and I know some of you are ready to check out of here. I get it. It's not anybody's favorite thing, but stick with us. The budget is the number one thing to help you get out of debt and achieve financial freedom. So we have some phenomenal helpers today that are going to pass out one paper to each person. Except if you're a couple, you're just going to get one per couple kind of thing, because you have to be doing your budget together. If you're a couple, if you are married and you are sharing a bed together and your finances aren't combined, that's a problem. So that's a big problem. I'm just going to say it. Sorry if I stepped on your toes. I'm just here to offend people, and it's fine. But that's a big problem. You can't say we're one in this area, but not in this area, when we're one in all areas. So you have to be one if you're married. So that's a topic we could go deeper into if you want to another time. But I'm going to give that to Angie.
Okay, all right, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll talk about some real quick reasons why people don't budget, but I did want to tag one thing on the budget. So it's interesting because Tiana and I have such different stories, but tithing is a thread and also budgeting. Budgeting was how Josh and I have been able to navigate life with no debt. Budgeting is how Nick and Tiana have been able to pay off debt. So regardless of your goal, this is the roadmap for you to get to your goal. So a few reasons why people do not budget. Well, I've tried it in the past. It never worked. I mean, why would I budget? Oh my gosh, budgeting. Who has time for budgeting? Oh my goodness. Stress and fear. Like, one thing I think about budgeting, it's so funny, is people are like, I don't want to budget. I'm afraid of like what I'm going to find when I dig into my numbers, like if I put it on paper. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, burying your head in the sand, that's not a good financial strategy. You don't know how. Well, you, after today, cannot ever use that excuse again. And then, well, what about me? I work on commission. I have inconsistent income. That, my friend, is not a good reason to budget. So we're going to dig through the budget really quickly. Tiana's going to tell you quickly how to do a budget, and we're wrapping it up after that.
Yep. Okay, so you just got some papers passed out to you. It literally has the directions on how to create a budget on one side, and on the other side, it's your quick start budget form. So you can set up a budget in 5 easy steps. You're going to list all of your income. You're going to put it all out there. Everybody's paycheck in the household kind of thing that pays the bills, you're going to put that on there. You're going to then list all of your expenses. And a key to listing all of your expenses is to think of the little things also that maybe you forget about, like subscriptions. I cannot tell you the amount of clients that I have that don't even know what that subscription from Amazon, Apple, or YouTube is. They have no clue why they're paying that fee. So check your subscriptions. I'm talking like one in the thousands of dollars worth of subscriptions a month. So lots and lots of subscriptions. The little things add up big time. So list all of your expenses and then subtract your expenses from your income. So it's pretty easy to do. Income is one amount, expenses are another. Hopefully you end up with something in the positive, but you might not. You might end up with something in the negative, and then you need to evaluate what needs to cut because we can't pay all these bills kind of thing. So you want to make sure that you take care of your 4 walls first, which are your food, clothing, housing, transportation.
Yes.
Sorry.
Food, utilities, transportation, and
housing. Oh, not clothing.
Yeah. Sorry,
That's
clothing
the
is
spender.
not a necessity.
You do have to get clothes, but you probably already have them. You're all wearing them, so you have some clothes. So
You can tell what Tiana's for also. No, I was just kidding.
that's true. But I mean, when you do have kids, sometimes clothing has to be one of those things. Like your kids are growing, you can't be sending them out to school with clothes that don't fit. So anyways, then you track all your expenses all month long. So you can do that by writing them down and subtracting them if you want to. Or you can use the $Every Budget app, which is something that Angie and I both use. It's actually free. There's a free version and then there's a paid version of it. And neither one of us makes any money from you getting this app. So I'm just throwing that out there now. But if Papa Dave wants to send me some money, that'd be fine. But we don't get anything for you using the Every app. But it is so simple to set up your budget online and do everything we just said online. It does the math for you. You don't have to add anything up. It does it for you. So it's really, really great. And then you want to make a new budget before the next month begins. So on August 30th, I'm making my budget for September, or maybe a little earlier, depending on when our pay periods come in and that kind of thing. So that's it. 5 steps. You guys, it's so simple. And one of the easiest things you can do if you've never done a budget before and you have no clue where to even start is use your bank statement from last month, or you can go online and look at your transaction record, and you can use those numbers to plug in to get an idea of how much you're spending. It's an eye-opener when you realize how much you're actually spending on things like restaurants or Starbucks or, I don't know, fill in the blank, maybe purebred, maybe you're not going to Starbucks, I don't know. So anyways, it's an eye-opener. So that's the budget. Super fast.
Yes, super fast. So next slide, are we? Okay, so we're wrapping it up here soon. So the budget will give you the control in your life that you never thought you had. It will be your roadmap. And I think you said this, creating a budget has to be a team effort. Yeah, you did that. So I'm going to end on one scripture. And we actually went through this in our intercessory prayer the other day, and it's so, it just really aligned with what we're talking about today, and that's Philippians 4:10 through 13. And I'm going to read the version out of the Passion Translation. And this is Paul talking. So my heart overflows with joy when I think of how you demonstrated your love to me by financial support of my ministry. For even though you have so little, you continue to help me at every opportunity. I'm not telling you this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be satisfied in any circumstance. That's the contentment piece. I know what it is to be in lack. And I'll tell you what, when we first got married, we had lots of lack. I was like, whoa, we're broke. But I also know what it means to experience overwhelming abundance. And we're in a stage where we're more in an abundant stage. For I'm trained in the secret. And I think about the Olympic athletes and what they're going through. They train in secret. Whether in fullness or in hunger, I find the strength of Christ's explosive power infuses me to conquer every difficulty. So I'll tell you what, if you need the strength to do this, it's not in you, it's in him. And that's how you get there. So turn it back over to Tiana quick.
Yeah, I really love this quote from Craig Rochelle. He's a pastor also. It says, the decisions you make today will determine the stories you tell tomorrow. And that's true for every single one of us with every decision we make today. But I really just felt a heart also for our youth in this season, that you get to learn from some of these things and the faith that we had, because the decisions that you make with your money and with your faith and your walk with the Lord today determine the stories that you maybe one day will stand up here and tell. So, think about things before you go into debt twice.
Or you can start at the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, you can start now. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay, so those were some other things. You really can do this. You just have to be intentional. You can change. You have the ability to do that. It's your choice. You can create new habits. So, and a great way to learn some more habits on the next slide is to join us for our next Financial Peace University class, because this is just the tip of the iceberg. So there's so much more to get into, and it really, really is something that I encourage everybody to attend. So you can scan the QR code and sign up for our class right there, or you can take a picture of the screen and you can go to that website with a funny number. I promise it's real. You can go there and it's a link directly to our class. It's going to start on September 26th. It will be 9 weeks long. We'll run it from 6:30 to about 8:30. It's about a 2-hour class for 9 weeks, but really just such a great foundation and a way for you to have some support in changing your financial habits also. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. So thank you. You guys stuck with us the whole time. Yay! I'm such a nerd. I honestly could talk about this all day long. My daughter Grace was so funny because she's like, are you guys just going to talk about money the whole time? And I'm like, oh yeah, we are. Oh my gosh, yeah. So anyways, I realize that everyone in this room, y'all are on very different paths. And I never want to leave this place without giving you an opportunity to get prayer for where you are. Whether you're enormously in debt and you need God to put his super on your natural, whether you're starting out and you want the strength and that fortitude to run this marathon of financial freedom, whether you are at a stage of your life where you have a little more to give and you're really asking for God's vision as to where to kind of pour your finances, I encourage you to come up and get prayer today. We have prayer teams. And I'll go ahead and call them up now. We have prayer teams that are anxious and wanting to pray for you in your financial walk. So just as we... Or any other needs. Is that not just money? Any other needs? Good point. But I'm going to close this in prayer and just really ask that God just overwhelms us with his provision and his goodness. So thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Papa God, that you are the ultimate giver. Thank you that you have given us a nature to give. Thank you that you are the ultimate provider, that you are the one who gives all things, Lord, that you are our provision. And so, God, I just pray right now, Lord, just as we have shared today, Lord, I just pray that you just continue to just meet every single one of our needs, Lord. I just pray for extra grace for those people walking and just navigating possibly debt, Lord. I just pray for, Lord, just great provision, Lord. I pray for just divine strategies as to how to move forward, Lord. And Lord, for those who are in different stages where they're in like deep giving stages, Lord, I just pray for great wisdom as to how to navigate being a generous giver. And Lord, I just thank you that you are a provision not only in finances, but you're a provision in health and healing. And we thank you for your goodness and just how good you are. We love you so much. Amen. And one thing I did forget to say, so we will have the prayer teams up front, and there's plenty of room for people to get prayer. But those who aren't getting prayer, if you could use your muscles to help move chairs out into the narthex, right? So those who are getting prayer, come on up. But those who have some muscles and would like to move a chair or two out into the narthex, we'd appreciate that as well. So thank you guys very much. Have a great Sunday.